Jersey Devil. The story of the Jersey Devil begins, as all good horror stories do, with a really, really bad parenting decision. Back in the 1700s, there was a woman named Mother Leeds, living somewhere deep in the swamps of New Jersey. She already had 12 children, which, let's be honest, is 11 too many. And when she found out she was pregnant again, she reportedly threw her hands up and said, "Lord, let this one be a devil." Imagine being pregnant for the 13th time. Girl, I'd pray for a devil too. And you know what? For once, someone's prayer was answered immediately. So hell yeah, I guess. 9 months later, and you can probably guess what happened. Just kidding, she gave birth to a normal baby boy. For about 5 seconds. Then, the child's skin hardened like leather. His eyes turned red, wings tore through his back, and his legs twisted into hooves. Some say he killed everyone in the room before flying straight up the chimney. Others say he simply left, which frankly is what I'd do too after being born into that family. Since then, locals have sworn that something monstrous stalks the Pine Barrens. A flying, goat-like creature with bat wings, a horse's head, claws sharp enough to gut livestock, and a scream that could curdle milk. Over time, though, skeptics blamed it on birds, hysteria, and bad eyesight. But believers still say the devil's out there, gliding through the Jersey pines. Black Annis. Just outside Leicester, there's a place called Dane Hills, where beneath the last standing oak was a cave, said to be home to someone known as the Black Annis. I mean Annis. If you're confused, trust me too. Anyway, Black Annis is basically the boogie woman of Leicestershire. And like every classic witch story, this one starts with an ugly old hag. And by old hag, I mean she had blue skin, claws like blades, and one unblinking yellow eye that shone through the dark. Honestly, I don't know why she's called Black Annis. By the sound of it, she's more Navy Annis. So, yeah, according to folklore, she carved her own cave into the side of the Dane Hills with her iron claws. She didn't only pick it for the view, shocking I know, but also because it doubled as her favorite hunting spot. On dark nights, she'd crouch in the branches of her oak, perfectly still, waiting for a kid to wander below. No kids? No problem. She'd creep into the village, reach through open windows with those claws, and snatch whoever she could. By the time anyone woke up, she'd be back in her cave, skinning her prey, putting the meat aside for later, and slowly devouring what was left. The skins? Sewn into a skirt. So not only was she into recycling, she apparently also had a killer sense of style. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciated her fashion choices, so terrified locals started building their homes with tiny windows just to keep her arms out. If you ask me, the scariest part about this story is the thought of living in Leicester, the Banshee. Shush. Do you hear that? Ah! Okay, that hurts. If your ears weren't bleeding from my dumb jokes, I bet they are bleeding now, and y'all better hope that scream was fake, because if it wasn't, someone's about to die. That sound you just heard? That's the calling card of the Banshee. Depending on who you ask, she either appears as a gorgeous woman with flowing hair or an old crone, like that Annis woman. In Irish folklore, she's known for her dramatic screaming and crying. So, basically how my friends describe me. Anyway, her name comes from Bean Sida, meaning woman of the fairy mounds. Sounds kind of magical, right? Well, she was magical, once. Originally, she was seen as one of the fair folk, a spirit tied to Ireland's ancient gods. But after a few centuries of Christian rebranding, the poor thing got demoted from divine goddess to ghost who screams at your house. Talk about a fall from grace. Luckily, it's not that she kills you or anything. She just shows up before someone dies, screams the bad news, then dips. Basically, the loudest Irish goodbye in history. But shockingly enough, she wasn't always feared. That wail was once an act of compassion, mourning the dead before anyone else could. In a way, she was Ireland's first grief counselor, just louder. So if you ever hear that wail echoing through the night, don't go looking. But if you ever do run into her, maybe give her a little shove off a bridge. Just hope she doesn't know how to banshee jump. Black-eyed children. You all know the black-eyed peas, right? This is them now. Feel old yet? I'm kidding, sorry. Though honestly, you'll wish the worst thing these kids did was sing boom boom pow, because there's only one thing worse than regular kids, and that's kids with completely black eyes. The stories always start the same. You're peacefully watching my videos late at night when there's a knock on the door. Right away, I've got a feeling tonight's not going to be a good night, because if you're dumb enough to open the door, you'll see two pale kids standing on your porch. They talk weirdly polite, monotone, usually asking to come in. It's all very please and thank you, until you notice something's off. Their clothes are outdated, their skin's too pale, and their eyes completely black. According to reports, They started showing up in the late 90s, always in pairs or trios, always asking for permission to
Let me
enter.
in.
Like vampires, they can't come in unless you invite them. So I guess demons understand consent better than some people. Anyway, if you're still opening your door for random kids in the middle of the night, I don't know what to tell you. Natural selection, I guess. Because when you let them in, you'll get sick, your pets might die, and your nightmares won't ever stop. So, yeah, moral of the story? If a child ever knocks at 3 a.m., don't open the door. Because people be killing and people be dying. And honestly, babysitting is not worth eternal damnation. Shirime, you know how I told you about that Annis woman earlier? Yeah, well, she's absolutely gonna love this guy. Meet the Shirime, Japan's most eye-opening yokai, and probably the only reason you'll ever want to wear pants again. From far away, he looks totally normal. Just a polite man in a kimono, strolling the quiet streets of Kyoto after dark. But then he approaches, bows like a gentleman, and softly asks,
Excuse me, do you have a moment to spare?
and before you can say yes, boom, he drops the kimono, bends over, and reveals his one glowing eye, right where the sun doesn't shine. That's right, this yokai literally has an eyeball in his butt. His name even translates to butt eye. Very creative, Japan. Now, before you panic, the Shirime isn't dangerous. Well, except for your eyesight, maybe. But other than that, he doesn't attack, curse, or steal souls. He just moons people. For fun. No one really knows why he does it, but I bet he's seen some shit in his life. Anyway, maybe keep an eye out for strangers in kimonos late at night, or you'll end up in the world's worst staring contest. Best case, turn a blind eye and walk away, because if you don't, you'll see something you can't unsee. The Mothman. Picture this. It's 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a quiet little town where nothing ever happens. Until one night, someone looked up and saw a giant man with wings and glowing red eyes. Naturally, the town freaks out, holds a meeting, and collectively decides to name it the Mothman. Because apparently, Lampshade Larry was already taken. So yeah, real spooky. Witnesses said he had wings 10 feet across, eyes that burned like taillights, and could fly faster than you ignoring the subscribe button. So hey, if you love my videos as much as this guy loves a porch light, maybe hit that button before he hits your window. Anyways, the first sighting happened when a bunch of gravediggers saw him hovering over a cemetery. And honestly, he's kind of hard to miss. After that, sightings exploded all over town. People saw him by the old TNT plant, flying over trees, even chasing cars down dark roads. Then, a year later, tragedy struck. The Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. Locals connected the dots and decided Mothman wasn't just a bug-eyed freak. He was a warning, a flying omen of doom. Of course, skeptics say it was probably just a big owl. Believers, however, call him an alien, a government experiment, or maybe even an omen that appears before tragedy. Either way, Point Pleasant turned him into a celebrity. They built him a shiny statue, complete with an ass Nicki Minaj would die for, and now host an entire Mothman festival every year. But if you ever spot him yourself, don't panic. Just turn off the light. Trust me, it's the only time avoiding responsibility might save your life. Skinwalker. All right, picture this. You hear scratching at your door, you peek outside, and your dog's there. Cute. Except he's standing on his hind legs, and he just rang the doorbell. What do you do? Now, if your first instinct is to open that door, honestly, same. Then I hate to break it to you. You just invited a skinwalker inside. The legend of the skinwalker comes from Navajo tradition, where they're known as Yi Naldlushi, which translates roughly to, with it, he goes on all fours. But long before they started to cosplay as your dog, they were once medicine people who used sacred rituals for healing. To no one's surprise, some got greedy. They decided to take on new hobbies like murder, grave desecration, and even cannibalism, all in the pursuit of forbidden power. And that's when they stopped being human and started being a furry. Well, sort of. It's said that to become a skinwalker, a witch must kill a close family member to gain the ability to shapeshift into any creature they choose. Coyotes, wolves, owls, anything they've imprinted on. They can also mimic voices, wear faces, and move just like us. Which is great news for my male viewers, since half of you wouldn't notice the difference anyway. Your partner could walk in with hooves and glowing eyes and you'd still be like, new haircut? But be mindful. Even talking about skinwalkers is taboo in Navajo culture, because saying their name gives them power. But don't worry, guys, I'm sure I'll be fine. Tokoloshe. In the still hours before dawn, when shadows stretch long and breath hangs in the air, the Zulu people say something else moves in the dark, something small, hairy, and very, very mean. They call it the Tokoloshe, a dwarf-like water spirit born from dark magic and bitter grudges. According to legend, A Tokoloshe is made by a shaman who's been wronged, using ashes, blood, and a hot iron poker driven through a corpse's skull. The sorcerer summons this creature to hunt his enemies, basically a spiritual hitman, but smellier and significantly less professional. And trust me, the stench is probably the least of your problems, because this lad doesn't just scare, it sneaks into homes, strangles sleepers, steals children, and twists dreams into sickness. And he does all that while looking like a mutilated goblin with hollow eyes and rotting teeth. Though other times, he's described as half bear, half human. Either way, you'll know it's been there, by the bite marks or the missing toes. Even today, it's still blamed for everything, from stolen jewelry to mysterious deaths. It's basically South Africa's all-purpose excuse. So next time your teacher asks why your homework isn't done, just shrug and say, Tokoloshe. Works every time. But if it comes for you, there's one trick that might save you. Raise your bed on bricks before sleeping, because apparently the Tokoloshe just can't jump that high. And that, my friends, wraps up tonight's horrors. But if you're brave enough for more, don't sleep yet. Click over to my next Halloween special, if you dare.